Hey everyone, welcome back to the Digital Ledger, your go-to podcast for accountants and finance pros trying to stay a step ahead in this crazy, evolving industry. I'm Kathy, lifelong corporate finance vet, and I'm here as always with Jeremy. But before he jumps in, I want to throw out a quote that always rattles in my brain when we talk about growth. The greatest shortcoming of the human race is man's inability to understand the exponential function. That's Albert Bartlett. He nailed it way back in '76, and honestly, it's still true in boardrooms today.
Absolutely, Kathy. And that's not just a mathematician's gripe. For businesses, especially the ones we work with, scaling can seem like this magical thing. Rapid growth, hockey stick graphs, everyone's excited. But the reality is most of us are way more comfortable thinking in straight lines, right? We add, we accumulate. Exponential? That's trickier to wrap your head around. And it's the first big theme from the Journal of Business Venturing article we're digging into. Scaling is fundamentally different from plain old growth. It's a time-limited process of exponential growth. That's their definition, and it's a game changer for how we should be thinking about scaling.
It's funny because even folks at the top mix up scaling and growth. That paper points out how scaling gets tossed around as a synonym for just, expanding or hiring more. But in the research, scaling is specifically that period when a business is increasing in proportion each period. So not 300K more revenue every year, but 30% more, then another 30%, and so on. That's what gives you that hockey stick effect. Flipdish's CEO was quoted saying, "If we're not doubling or tripling each year, it won't seem like success." That's the kind of exponential they're talking about.
And I love how they landed on this point by going back to math, not just business buzzwords. I mean, we see it. Firm A adds $300,000 per year. Firm B goes for 30% compounded annual growth. By year 10, Firm B is triple Firm A's size. For us finance folks, that's not just an interesting graph. It changes how we build models, how we forecast cash flow, and even how we evaluate risks. Exponential growth also means those crazy inflection points come on fast. Suddenly, capacity gets maxed out, cash burns hotter, and management bandwidth, well, that's shot if you're not ahead of the curve.
Right, and here's the kicker. Most companies, even ones that scale, hit a wall, or that curve flattens out. Scaling isn't forever, but while it lasts, it's fierce. So today, we're looking at what the research actually says about how businesses achieve, not just survive, scaling, and what it means for all of us tasked with keeping the books accurate while a company's priorities seem to change by the minute. Before we dive in further, we value credibility and we want to make sure that we are fully transparent. AI plays an active role in generating and shaping this podcast, from supporting research to assisting with certain elements of script creation. At the same time, all fact validations and the majority of research and creative decisions are made by our human team. This blend brings together the best of both worlds.
Coming back to our main topic, scaling. The second big theme that really surprised me, and honestly, I think is pretty counterintuitive if you're used to thinking in traditional cost-volume profit terms, is that sustainable scaling isn't about just growing faster. It's about something called superlinear scaling. Stick with me. It's not just that output grows, it's that output grows faster than input. That's where competitive advantage lives.
Yeah, and that's a little mind-bending. It's like, okay, you're not just doubling revenue by doubling headcount. Instead, you're figuring out how $1 of extra cost leads to $2 or even more in revenue at scale. That's the increasing returns to scale trick. The sources cite WorkHuman as a case study. They moved from nearly linear to superlinear scaling when revenues started outpacing costs, until eventually, like so many, that equation broke down again.
And this is where accountants really come in. If you're measuring just the size, you're missing half the story. The research even shows that efficiency gains aren't always economies of scale in the classic sense. They can come from digital platforms with near-zero marginal costs, from network effects, or from clever process innovation. The classic supply chain, bulk buying? Sure, but just as often now, it's about digital resources, platforms, even the brand. I mean, Amazon's average annual growth was nearly 29% over 2 decades, and that was on a digital backbone, scale-free, globally, just wild.
It makes me think, if you're still treating digital businesses like factories, tracking labor or physical asset growth as your main input, you're missing how most of the top-line magic happens. Instead, it's technology, knowledge, brand. And sometimes it's just being able to handle more users. Think positive network externalities, where every new customer actually makes the product more valuable for everyone else. Reminds me of one quote. Once network effects are ignited, it can generate runaway demand. That's how you get those big, fast, winners-take-most markets. There's a lesson for accountants. Track what actually scales, not just what's easy to count.
For sure, and it goes both ways. The ugly flip side is WeWork. They chased big exponential revenue, but their inputs, operations costs, people, just grew out of control. They were a cautionary tale for tracking both sides of the input-output equation. So for finance leaders, it's not enough to forecast wild growth. You have to be the canary about cost structure going off the rails. Sustainable scaling, per the research, means outputs accelerate and inputs lag behind, not the other way around.
Let's hit the third big, and maybe the most overlooked, takeaway. Internal transformation. This comes out loud and clear in the research, and I'll just say it. More companies stall out not from lack of ambition, but from failing to transform the way they operate on the inside. Graph theory, even if I'm not a math person, shows the number of interactions inside a firm explodes as you grow. N-1/2 for the nerds out there. Basically, doubling your staff more than doubles your complexity.
Oh, for sure. And those scaling experts quoted in the paper, founders, execs, policy folks, they all talk about proactive, well-paced transformation. It isn't enough to run faster. You need to actually change how you manage, how you share information, how you build teams. You need structure. One founder said, "You've suddenly gone from a tiny flat organization to one that needs some form of hierarchy, or maybe even a matrix structure. The old processes start to buckle. You need new job roles, new decision rights, new systems. If you don't do it, things break. And well, when things break at scale, they break very, very badly."
Exactly. And what caught my attention was how the research identifies 4 core traits for successful internal transformation. Fundamental changes to inputs and input-output relationships. Being proactive, not just waiting for problems to bubble up. Pacing changes so you don't create chaos. And then sustained innovation. This isn't just R&D. It's about rebuilding the capacity of the organization. Internal organizing and internal aspects. That was from an academic expert in the Delphi study. I mean, you have to keep changing who you hire, how you structure teams, and how information flows. If your internal systems can't handle a 10x spike, your scaling journey is over. It's almost like, in finance, we need to get good at seeing bottlenecks before they're bottlenecks.
There's a lesson in there that goes right beyond process mapping or even digital transformation. Accountants are often the glue here, right? We have the data. We see the process inefficiencies, sometimes before ops does. If you're a controller or finance leader and you're not being heard when you bring up, "Hey, our reporting won't scale at 5x volume," keep pushing. According to the study, companies that did internal transformation proactively, put in systems early, planned to handle the next wave of growth, not just the current one, avoided chaos, and actually stretched their exponential run longer.
Honestly, it means upgrading more than just technology. When you hear practitioners say, "You can't do the same thing every day and expect new results," or "Some employees just top out," it's true. You might need new management layers, sometimes new leaders entirely. So if your organization is scaling, ask those uncomfortable questions early. Like, will our finance team keep up when every metric starts moving at warp speed? Will our workflows break under the pressure? Not fun, but much better than doing triage after something snaps.
And don't forget the culture piece. One of the practitioners talked about how creativity gets beaten out of large businesses by management styles more interested in safety than innovation. If you want to keep innovating, you have to guard against calcifying processes. So transformation isn't a one-shot deal. It's everything changing all at once, and again as you grow. So, stepping back, what does all of this mean for accountants, controllers, CFOs, everyone listening today? The big surprise from the research is that sustainable scaling isn't just a flashy external event. It's a set of carefully orchestrated, internally driven changes that have to run ahead of visible growth. The line that stuck with me from the paper is this: internal transformation ensures the business is fit for exponential increase in outputs and increasing returns to scale. As finance pros, we are uniquely positioned to spot when input-output relationships tilt the wrong way, or when processes bottleneck.
And I'll add, don't get distracted by assumptions about scale, always meaning headcount or square footage. Digitalization means the real scaling can happen with barely any physical footprint. That's both incredible for efficiency and a new risk area for accountants. Suddenly, the levers are hidden in tech stacks and software utilization, not raw throughput. Keep asking, are we leveraging those superlinear returns, or are we just getting busier?
So the call to action, I think, is this: how can we be more than just the historical record keepers? How do we become early warning systems and transformation catalysts? As companies chase exponential growth, who better to spot when returns to scale are stalling, or when internal complexity is about to turn into entropy?
I'll just say, don't shy away from pushing for new systems, smarter structures, and asking about innovation in your own function. If the old ways things are done won't scale, better to say it now. It's a wild ride, but that's why we're here. We're not done with this topic. Trust us. There's so much more to unpack on digitalization, scaling, and yes, even the next frontier, AI in finance. But that's for next time.
Well said, Kathy. Folks, reflect on where your organization is in that scaling journey, and think about what proactive steps you can take now, not in crisis mode. Thanks for joining us again on the Digital Ledger. Kathy, always a pleasure.
Back at you, Jeremy. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next episode. Stay curious, keep evolving. Goodbye.
Take care, everyone.